Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:30 and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby.
Here.
Mr. Helmer.
Here.
Mr. Kurth.
Here.
Ms. Schulz.
Here.
Mr. Seidel.
Here.
Ms. Unger.
Here.
Ms. Wondercheck.
Here.
I would entertain a motion to recess to closed session.
Madam President, I move to recess into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, 1 C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the approval of closed session minutes of August 9th, B, the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, and C, a recess to executive session.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Helmer. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth.
Yes.
Mr. Helmer.
Yes.
Ms. Crosby.
Yes.
Ms. Schulz.
Yes.
Mr. Seidel.
Yes.
Ms. Unger.
Yes.
Ms. Wondercheck.
Yes.
We are moving into closed session and return to open session around 7 o'clock. It is now 7:03, and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. And now, for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the City Library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. We'll begin with privilege of the floor. Meetings of the board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the schools and therefore are not public meetings, but meetings held in public. This portion of the meeting is an opportunity for you to come and voice your concerns to the board. So please do not be offended when we quietly listen. We may even take notes. We do not immediately respond to your questions and comments. This is a time for you to talk and us to listen. Thank you for coming to voice your comments and concerns. When I call your name, please step up to the microphone, address the chair, and state your name and whether or not you are a resident in the school district. Each presentation will be restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Privilege of the floor is limited to 1/2 hour. We have several tonight who want to speak, so if you do hear somebody who says something that you agree with, if you could possibly condense your statements so that everybody as possible can come up and have a moment to state their opinion for this tonight.
Janet, I did want to just mention that if anybody does need a chair, we can certainly accommodate. See Royce or Dave back there, or Royce, can you stop over here quick and see if anybody needs an additional chair? Thank you.
Thanks. Presentations are not to be designed for purposes of engaging others in a debate in this forum. Discussion of certified, classified, or professional personnel or of individual Board of Education members shall not be considered an appropriate topic for this forum, and the speaker will be ruled out of order. First is Angela Spielman.
Good evening. My name is Angela Spielman. I'm a resident district parent and resident of New Berlin. I actually just finished re-enrolling my children in the school district of New Berlin based on the school board's decision on 7/26. It was pretty well known that 7/26 was the day when Mr. Garza was going to present his reopening plan or reentry plan, and the board was going to discuss it and vote. For those that weren't here, let me refresh your memory. The board voted 5-1 in favor of Mr. Garza's reentry plan. Simple math tells us 5 + 1 = 6. And if you're paying attention, there are 7 board members. I'm not here to get into details. I'm just sticking to the facts. The facts are that 1 board member was not present and did not vote. If you want your kid to wear a mask, that's your choice. But my children will not wear masks. And if that makes you or your child uncomfortable, then they need to stay home. And I bet you there's parents in this room who don't want me, a perfect stranger, telling them what to do with their child. I have a news flash for you. Neither do I. So, I won't tell your kid to stay home, and you won't tell my kid to wear a mask. My children are looking forward to returning to the classrooms at School District of New Berlin, and they will do so unmasked, regardless of what is decided here tonight. We do not comply. I do not co-parent with anyone in this room, and I do not co-parent with the government. Thank you for your time.
Chad Ellenberg.
Madam President, point of order. Can you please encourage the crowd to remain with civility and decorum during a business meeting?
No,
This is
please.
a business meeting.
Yes,
It's not a
please,
campaign
everybody.
rally. It's not,
Thank you. Yes, we
Thank
heard.
you.
Thank you. Please, this is a business meeting.
Chad Ullenberg, and I'm a resident of New Berlin. and I'm here to discuss the proposal to mask elementary school until FDA approval for vaccines 5 years and up, plus 6 weeks. This is another case of moving the goalpost. This is the same thing we've seen nationally. We're told we must reinstate the mask mandate because COVID cases have grown, but when COVID cases were lower earlier this year, the same people insisted we keep the mask mandate in place. Whether COVID cases grow or recede doesn't matter, it's always the same. Masks for our children. We don't know exactly when the FDA will approve these vaccines for children, but a decision to authorize the vaccine for children younger than 16 could be at least several months away. Then the argument will be that children will be visiting family over the holidays, so we must keep the mask mandate in place with a promise to review in February. February rolls around, and the argument will be, well, it's cold and flu season, and the mask mandate must stay in place with a promise to review in spring. Come spring, the argument will be that masks have been in place for all year, so why change the policy now? Then they'll talk about reviewing for the 2022-2023 school year, moving the goalpost where our children suffer. The American Academy of Pediatrics has recently recommended masking for all children over 2 years old and vaccines 12 and older. The AAP names the billion-dollar pharmaceutical company Pfizer as one of their generous supporters. You can find this on their website. Pfizer was approved by the FDA today for Americans 16 years old and older. 16, not children under 16, as the AAP recommended. Pfizer donates money, and the AAP recommends their vaccine. What about the recommendations of the CDC? Medical studies on masking fall into two categories: observational studies or randomized controlled trials, dubbed RCT. Much of the scientific community has based its masking guidance on observational studies rather than RCT. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention released a press release highlighting an observational study that focused on 2 COVID-positive hairstylists in Missouri. There are several glaring problems with this study and all observational studies. First and foremost, it did not have a control group. This is why trials are more reliable. They compare one variable group to a control group to determine how effective that variable is. The CDC has not bothered to cite or mention any of the trials regarding masking. Why? The CDC doesn't like what RCTs show. Several trials conducted over the past several years, each of which found that cloth masks and surgical masks offer very little to no benefit at all. One of the trials that was specifically tested masks against COVID-19 was a 2020 study in Denmark with 4,800 participants. The research showed that 1.8% of those in that mask group and 2.1% in the control group became infected with COVID within a month. This is a 0.3 difference, not being statistically significant. Incredibly, the CDC has dismissed the Danish study as inconclusive and too small, while praising the observational study of the Missouri hairdressers with fewer than 200 participants and no control group. Since medical masks were patented in 1919, they've been defined as personal protective equipment, PPE, meaning you wear it to protect yourself. They stopped being called personal protective equipment and changed the narrative to you wear a mask to protect other people. I'll wrap it up there.
Thank you. Please, sorry. You're out of order, please. We have to keep decorum. This is a public business meeting. Next up is Bethany Kavanaugh. Correct? We do.
Hello, my name is Bethany Kavanaugh. I'm a New Berlin resident, and I have 3 children that attend the New Berlin schools. My daughter, who is 14 at New Berlin West, and my 2 sons, ages 8 and 11, at Orchard Lane Elementary. I say their ages because they are important. My daughter received her first COVID vaccination the day it was available for her age. She is now fully vaccinated. However, she chooses to wear a mask to better protect herself and others. My boys, again, are ages 8 and 11. They're not able to receive the vaccination. They are at higher risk for getting COVID or the even more contagious Delta variant. In fall of last year, I sat down with my husband and my children and discussed how they felt about going back to school. We all agreed that we were optimistically cautious about returning back to school. We felt that the school district had a good plan in place that could keep our families safe. With masks, social distancing, plexiglass, limited movement in the school building, and one-way hallways, my children stayed healthy and safe. Wearing masks worked last year. Educational and social needs were met because children were in school. Children were able to experience as normal as a school year as possible. Parents, including myself, felt a sense of relief knowing that their children were receiving the best education possible while still living in a pandemic. Now with the new school year approaching, my children feel anxious. They are well aware that COVID rates are rising, and that the Delta variant is more contagious or as contagious as the virus of 2020. My children are questioning, if rates are rising, why is the school district not putting in necessary precautions to keep everyone safe? Why, in a district where we are supposed to expect excellence, are we not continuing with an excellent COVID precautions we had in the fall of 2020? The Delta variant is more contagious and spreads easier than the original virus. One unmasked infected child in a classroom can not only infect their classmates, but can infect others in the school given movement in the building. This can lead to increased infection rates in the community as children often bring the virus home and into the community. Wearing masks can significantly help cut down the potential rise in infection rates that can happen in schools. Masking is one thing we can do to keep everyone healthy and safe. Tonight, we will hear of a plan to have elementary students return to school with a mask requirement only until 6 weeks after the COVID vaccination becomes available for children ages 5 to 11. I strongly encourage you to vote yes to this plan. Masking not only keeps the students and staff in the elementary school safe, it also keeps the community safe, as well as extended family members of the elementary age students. Please do what is best for the youngest children in the school district. Please vote to approve the plan and keep the children masked until 6 weeks after the COVID vaccination becomes available for ages 5 to 11. Please continue to keep all children, including my children, safe. Thank you.
Please. If this keeps up, I'm going to have to ask people to leave. We have to be respectful to all the speakers and to what's going on here. So Bethany Kavanaugh, you're next. Oh, I'm sorry. Leah Demmel.
Hello, my name is Leah Dummel, and I'm a New Berlin taxpayer and parent. I'm disappointed that we are revisiting this again with less than 2 weeks before school starts. Community and board members had plenty of time to email or attend meetings. Delta variant was prevalent in July, when the last formal presentation was made on July 26. We should be done here. I will spare you the statistics about how masks are ineffective or how the increase in cases is statistically insignificant. I did that at the last meeting. The fact is, people made school choices based on that vote and canceled their other in-person alternate schools like myself. There is a choice. You can wear a mask or not. Why can't each parent make medical choices for their own kids with their personal doctor's guidance? There are also health risks to wearing masks. Both my children report breathing problems, headaches, and dizziness. That is a sign of low oxygenation. One of my children also has a speech developmental delay, and the masking impedes her progress. For me and my family, the risk of wearing a mask is greater. So allow me to decide what is more risky for my child. Virtual school has been a failure for our family, and it's difficult to get medical exemptions from doctors. It is also impossible to plan anything with this last-minute agenda. When the pandemic began, they told us 15 days to slow the spread so hospitals could not be overwhelmed, treatments could be perfected, and vaccine development could begin. Then life could go back to normal. It is 18 months later, and the goalposts keep changing to allow our freedom back. Now, one board member states, true parental choice comes with a vaccine and a Facebook post. It will never stop. There will always be new variants, spikes, and national hysteria. Now another board member asked for 6 weeks of universal masking. First, vaccinating children under 12 needs to be approved, and it has not been. There are 2 shots with 3 to 6 weeks in between each. I calculate this will take us into November or December minimally. Then, what if a booster or 3rd shot is recommended? Are we back to masks again? To the proponents of universal masking, I am tired of being told that I and my family need what we need to do to make you comfortable with this virus. I'm tired of your fear limiting my freedoms. Please do the revote, and I ask that all board members remain present for the vote. Let's support parental choice and freedom over fascism. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, so we can move on. Ann Staflinski.
Hello, Ann Shaflinsky, district resident. So when you accepted this job, did you ever expect to be making policy that could actually have life or death consequences? It's crazy, right? But one of your shared responsibilities with administration has always been to ensure our children are safe while in the care of our schools. You don't need to step in very often. Many safety decisions have been made for you at the federal and state level. Food safety, bus regulations, playground requirements. Last year's state mask mandates are examples. Other examples to keep children safe are taken locally, though. How do you protect our kids from the spread of head lice? How do you protect children with nut allergies? Do we require them to wear safety shoes when they're building houses? How do you ensure they don't hurt themselves or others with power tools in shop class? Parents don't say they want the freedom to choose whether their child will wear safety glasses in shop class. They don't demand the freedom to have the child bring a peanut butter sandwich to the nut-free lunch table or share their winter cap. How would you feel if a child permanently lost vision because our schools failed to make safety glasses compulsory? How would you feel if a child permanently lost his sense of taste and smell, or worse, because he caught COVID-19 in our school and transmitted it to others? Safety measures are put in place for the greater good. No one likes to wear safety goggles or seatbelts, but we do. We trust each other to keep our children home when they are sick. But with COVID, we do not know who is carrying it and sharing it. But our common ground is this. Everyone wants the students in the classrooms with their teachers and their peers. So how will you keep the children safe from the most contagious airborne virus the world has ever known? There is only one safety measure that is both free and effective: masks. They are effective if everyone wears them to prevent the spread. They are not effective if only a few wear them. This is well documented. There's plenty of studies to refer to, so I won't go there. But if there are some children who need exceptions for documented medical reasons, that certainly can be accommodated. We don't need you to make a decision on this important on your own, or by anecdotal evidence, or whoever shouts the loudest. You can simply follow the leading medical advice from CDC epidemiologists, the AAP, our own children's hospital, or any other public health experts, because these experts agree that masks are necessary to protect the children, period, end of story. Oh, and they're not making any money off of making more masks, so that's clearly not why they're all invested in mask companies. But if that's not enough, survey the elementary school parents and guardians. Ask them if they agree or disagree with the masks in those schools until they have a choice to vaccinate their children to protect them. Right now, they have no way to protect them in the school unless everyone wears masks. Even in May, when things look much better, the majority of district families surveyed urge you to follow the CDC guidelines. Should you ask these people today, I'm confident that you'll find the majority of these parents will tell you that they want you to mandate masks. So follow the advice from the medical community and supplement that with the survey data from the district families if it will give you the political cover to do the right thing. Either way, it will lead you to only one conclusion: protect our most vulnerable and unprotected population by requiring masks.
Thank you. Tanya Tayak.
Hi, Tanya Tayak, and yes, I am a New Berlin resident and taxpayer. Thank you, board members who voted for a return to normal and for our children's freedom and optional masks back on July 26th. Where were all the pro-maskers a month ago when this was voted on? This issue really is getting old. The science is not there. I would need hours to review statistics, scientific data, and hundreds of articles and videos from world virologists, pathologists, OBGYNs, biologists, immunologists, pediatricians, psychologists, and many other physicians, many who are well respected in their fields. I have done more research than many physicians and nurses, and I have been told by physicians and nurses that I have done more research on this COVID and also the vax. I say to those uninformed pro-maskers, trust your gut, people. Trust your intelligence and not your fear. Fear is what's dividing society, not science. And stop trying to control others. We will not be bullied with fear. We're not going to be bullied into or told what is best for our children. No one knows what's best for my children better than my husband and I. It really was appalling to hear a board member say, true parental choice comes with the vaccine, and parents can't be trusted. Excuse me? Our children are not yours, and you do not have the right to make any health decisions for any child other than your own. We would never sentence our children to a life of immune issues and other health issues from this shot, And let me remind you that my oldest daughter was diagnosed with cancer and had brain surgery. So trust me when I tell you I have done my research. We will not allow our children to stay home out of fear or be muzzled out of fear. If you are fearful, then double, triple, mask your kids or keep them home, but stop trying to tell us how to parent our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Dina Gracing?
Good evening. My name is Dina Gracing, and our family lives in New Berlin. My children have been in the New Berlin School District for their whole lives, and there is nowhere else we would rather be. Tonight, I stand here to applaud the majority of the school board and our superintendent on navigating the ever-changing challenges that we face as a nation, but more specifically, right here at home in New Berlin, in regards to our children and school decisions. Thank you for the time you take to be here, the time you take to research, the time you take to communicate with the public, including responding to emails, and most importantly, thank you for remembering that the board is meant to be the voice of the people who vote in our community. The article I'm quoting tonight was dated August 2021 and posted in New York Magazine and is titled, "The Science of Masking Kids at School Remains Uncertain." The science of masking kids at school remains uncertain. Distancing, hybrid models, classroom barriers, HEPA filters, and most noticeably, masking were each found to not have a statistically significant benefit. That means these measures could not be said to be effective. The World Health Organization, whose child masking guidance differs substantially from the CDC recommendations, have recognized the potential academic and social harm for children and may lack a clear benefit. To date, the highly transmissible Delta variant has not led them to change this calculus. Children are less likely to have severe disease from SARS-CoV-2, and when infected, less likely to be symptomatic, which correlates with lower contagiousness. Numbers coming out of Britain continue to suggest that Delta may be more contagious, but does not cause more severe illness or an individual basis to unvaccinated people. For each article that I find and read and research as someone who opposes forced masking, there are going to be opposing articles found, researched, and read from those who believe in forced masking. There is a different answer and a different belief on each side of this politically driven fence. There is no mandate anywhere forbidding people to wear a mask or choosing to mask their children. It should remain a choice. If that is what makes them happy, feel safer, they should continue to do so. I am happy that those who fear their masked children to be in the presence of an unmasked child do have virtual school options that they can utilize. I'm unsure why this small percentage of people believe the majority of children should be the group forced to virtual school versus their small numbers, and I'm saddened that although I do not try to parent their children, they feel that they should be able to parent mine. Based on the information that we know, I do not see the purpose for Chrysalin's presentation tonight, nor another vote on something that was competently reviewed and voted on last month. Parents have had the option to take a variety of surveys to confirm what the majority of families want. I'm not going to believe non-sanctioned surveys because they can easily be manipulated. I'm looking forward to beginning a great school year in New Berlin for my 8th and 11th grade kids at New Berlin West. The in-person teaching that they were so lucky to get for the entire year was because of the decisions made by this school board. We have led the way. There is no valid reason that we should change course from our path at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Sobrzak? Diane Sobczak? Sorry. Okay, thank you. She's not very bad. No, I'm bad at names, I'm sorry.
To the people as opposed to talk to the board, but
To the
I'll
board.
do what you want me to do. There's two facts that came out that you probably should all know, and I will read this. I have been a New Berlin resident for more than 30 years. My kids graduated from this school and have returned to raise their kids here because of how good the schools are. I'm here because my daughter made a decision when you decided to put masks back on children. She pulled her kids out of the school. She went to another school, and there are other children from New Berlin being pulled out because of this mask mandate. First of all, you need to know that unless you're wearing an N95, and she is a healthcare professional, she works in a trauma 1 unit. Unless you're putting an N95 on their face, it doesn't work. So they need N95s every other day. Unless you're willing to do that, that doesn't matter. You're foolish. So stop it. It doesn't help the kids at all. So there's that. I'm just so upset to even hear all this stuff happen. But maybe I can get back to her notes, but again, she's a trauma unit professional, and she's telling you that the kids are not going to benefit from cloth masks. It's not going to help. And you also need to know they have variants out to 2023 named. So you need to know that to 2023, we're going to be going through mask decisions.
Thank you. Scott Yench.
Hello, Scott Yench. I'm a resident of New Berlin. On July 26th, I spoke at Privilege of the Floor, asking you to follow the guidance of the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics to protect the children and the staff in our schools. Since that time, the CDC strengthened their recommendation by recommending masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to K-12 schools regardless of vaccination status. Waukesha County has gone from substantial to high level of community transmission. And schools around the country that have already opened are seeing cases increase in quarantining of both children and staff members. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services released guidance on August 6th, advising for universal masking in schools, especially for those too young to be vaccinated and those with compromised immune systems. Since no vaccine has been approved for use with children under 12, every child in our 4 elementary schools is at risk. It is on their behalf that I speak to you tonight. On Friday, I became aware of a proposal being presented at tonight's board meeting to consider a change in the reopening strategy. I support this proposal as it addresses the most vulnerable population in our schools. You are all well aware of all the information that supports requiring masks in schools, especially where there are unvaccinated children. Agencies at the federal and state levels have recommended doing so. An organization representing 67,000 pediatricians across the country have recommended that people in our schools use masks to reduce the spread of COVID-19. If that overwhelming official and medical guidance is not convincing enough, I thought that perhaps you needed to hear from the people of the School District of New Berlin. I created a form on Friday to solicit support for this proposal from the public, with the intention of providing it to you so that you can see that people in this school district support this proposal as well. Between 6:24 p.m. Friday and 11 a.m. today, I received 371 responses. After filtering out the false submissions and duplicate submissions, I received 345 responses in support of this proposal. In my email to all of you earlier today, I provided a screenshot of the original form and the list of names and submission times for your review. If we want to stay safe and to stay open, we need to take this step to protect the children in our schools that are not able to receive the vaccine yet. We believe that doing so will give the children in our schools the best chance to have a successful school year. While I wish that all of our students and staff would be required to wear masks, I feel that this is an acceptable compromise that protects our most vulnerable. Please support this proposal and put the safety of our children, teachers, and staff first. I hope that the responses you see collected in a very short amount of time will demonstrate that the community will support that decision, will recognize your leadership in the face of a vocal section that are applying pressure to you in spite of the advice of actual medical professionals and agencies whose job it is to protect us and our children.
Thank you. Jeanette Nowak.
Thank you, Jeanette Nowak. I'm a New Berlin resident. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm here to continue to advocate for the consideration of adopting policy 5350, student suicide, that Neola, the company that the district pays for, utilizes for school district policies. I continue to have 2 questions as to why the district still has not yet adopted this policy. What barriers continue to exist for the board to put on the agenda to consider proposed student suicide prevention, especially when a blanket policy exists and surrounding districts have it already in place? If there are barriers addressed from question 1, what can be done to overcome them as a district to ensure that the school district of New Berlin is providing a safe learning environment and catering to their social emotional needs? I have created a petition, and so far I do have 111 community members who are in favor of this policy being put into place, and I'm still going to keep it open for a little bit while. Next, I just want to address the curriculum transparency. that will be presented tonight. My first ask is that if you're going to be asking teachers to be providing curriculum transparency, then I do ask that the board also provide transparency in the presentations that will be presented during school board meetings. This will be that you're modeling exactly what your teachers are expected to do. This gives the public the ability to see what exactly is going to be presented. One presentation was allowed for the public to see, which was the one that Kristlyn had wrote. But unfortunately, I am not able to know what is going to be on the transparency presentation because that transparency was not there for the public. So a little bit of that as well. I just want to remind you of copyright issues for school districts. There are 3 copyright acts in the United States that are federal laws. The Copyright Act of 1976, the Copyright Term Extension Act, and the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Failure to follow copyright acts for school districts can result from anywhere from $200,000 to $150,000 fines per incident. So I do hope that you as a board has consulted your legal team. Copyrights include reproducing, distributing, performing, displaying, performing sound recordings and digital audio. A lot of copyright hasn't been noticed in the past, but due to the internet now, such publications have been caught now, and schools are being accounted for transparency of the copyrighted materials. So think about how your teachers are going to be providing such transparency to parents, and if parents are found to not agree and they post onto social media something that the school district has provided, you are now in violation of copyright, and it will be easily caught. And remember, $150,000 per incident. So if it gets widespread and it's all connected to New Berlin, it is on the board. Thank you so much.
Caitlin Mabry.
Everyone is a little taller than me. Hi, I'm Caitlin Mabry, and I am a resident of New Berlin. I have 3 children currently going to Poplar Creek. They are all super excited. And as you can see, I don't have a speech prepared. I actually wrote and threw away 3 speeches because I want to speak to you from my heart as a mom, as an educator, as a person that has done hours and hours of research and knows my babies better than anybody. I want to thank you first for making the decision a couple weeks ago to make masks optional. That made my decision to send my children back to school a lot easier, because I did send them last year because I thought it was going to be temporary. And I did so in hopes of them being able to remove them soon after the school year started. Well, they did not, but they were already invested. They were already in school. My daughter would come home with holes in her masks because she would bite through them. My other daughter would come home telling me she had a hard time breathing because she's so anxious. My kids could not wear them effectively. And here's where I could sit here and say statistics all day long. We could talk data, we could talk to statistics, but the bottom line is across the board, it says so on the mask, on the actual, mask insert, where the masks go in, right, the cover. It says that they need to be used effectively. They need to be worn effectively. And not all children are capable of doing that. And so as their mother, I really feel that I want to emphasize the fact that I should be given the right and responsibility and freedom to choose what's right for them. Every child's different. I'm an early childhood education, special education teacher by trade. I know that every child develops differently. And so we can't expect as one cumulative group to muzzle these children with face masks that don't necessarily have any statistical evidence that they actually work effectively, because our kids are touching their faces, and then they're touching everything around them, and then they just become these disgusting pieces of material that really need to be thrown in the garbage, but they pick them up again off their desk, and then they put them back down, and then my one daughter said they took mask breaks, and so it's just the effectiveness is not there. And so that is what I wanted to come and just bring. The point I wanted to bring home is that as their mother, I don't think that any sort of, when vaccines become available, well, guess what? My mom had a vaccine injury. She had a flu vaccine injury. She had 2 brain surgeries. You guys, she's never been the same. And so my family and everybody else's family has their own story. And so it's ridiculous that we should accumulatively enforce this on families and children when it's not right for everybody. You want to mask your kid? Fine, mask your kid, but don't tell me whether I should mask them or not, because they're my child. I know what's best for them. I know their bodies. I love them more than anything in the world. I birthed them. I did IVF in vitro to get them. I know them. I love them. I would not ever do anything to jeopardize their health and well-being. So please continue to give us the freedom to choose. Thank you.
Thank you. We reached our maximum time limit. So I just have to apologize to those of you who are not going to get a chance to speak. I really appreciate that you all did come out here tonight. So President's message, that's pretty much my President's message. Thank you for coming. I am disappointed we can't hear from all of you this evening. We've received several emails through the last few days, and I know not all of them have been able to have been replied to, but know that they've been received and they've been read. Up next then is the administrative team report, superintendent's update.
Yeah, so I just have a few updates, of which some I'll defer to the regular agenda related to the COVID conversation. But first, I did want to just mention that we welcome back all new staff to the school district last week. We had a couple days with them. Tomorrow, we actually welcome back all of our staff, so we're looking forward to that. In about a week and a half, we welcome back 4,200 plus students into our classrooms in the hallways. And of course, parents, you're welcome. We're very much to have them here. And again, I did want to mention that while we did have some difficulties and some interesting things to navigate through last year, I was able to review the annual report, which we put out usually about right before the start of the school year. Actually, I apologize, right around the start of the school year and before the budget hearing and annual meeting. And as I read through that, I was extremely humbled yet proud of the incredible work that we did as a school district last year. You would almost, as you read through it, and again, families, all community members will have a copy of it again here sometime in the coming month or so. While you may notice some changes in some of the pictures that we were dealing with a pandemic type situation, our accomplishments were quite similar to the years previous. Just incredible accomplishments by our students, our staff, and community members. And again, I not only humbled to be the superintendent, taxpayer, parent, and resident of New Berlin, but extremely, proud of our work. So again, I'll defer my commentary related to any COVID questions that the board might have to that board item. Thank you.
Please come in order. Up next is our consent agenda, which includes the notice, approved minutes of August 9th, and the financial reports. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and a second by Mr. Kurth to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed?
Policy as it relates to curriculum transparency, specifically actually a policy related to controversial issues in the classroom. I just want to clarify one thing, that a lot of what we'll be presenting tonight are things for the most part that we've already done. What this policy will do is memorialize that practice. And again, that the board has approved that policy. Our objectives tonight are quite simple. We want to provide to you what we have provided to our parents and what we'll be providing to them moving forward. We also want to be able to share what's been available on our website so that not only community members, taxpayers, but others can view and what can be expected. And then Again, how parents will be engaged or have been engaged in curriculum-related issues and what the process will be moving forward. So just a few highlights related to use of Canvas. And Canvas is basically our student portal that parents can access to get a variety of different things related to their respective student and students. I do want to point out that 2019-2020, as we all know, that year ended with schools being shut down in person that March through the end of the school year. So as you know, when I presented data from that 1920 school year, I always caution you because it's that year that was like no other. But if you look at 2021, based on survey data, this was our annual end-of-year survey for parents. We have a decent amount of families involved in accessing their student Canvas dashboard. This is what we've done. Secondary teachers, so those 712 at Ike and West, they're required to add weekly plans and submit their syllabi on Canvas. And then our elementary teachers were required to add weekly plans on Canvas. As far as what we plan to do, we plan to get some more detail in there. And again, please note that Canvas was actually new to the school district last school year. So there were things that we were working through that was different than PowerSchool, which we had used for several years prior to. So again, we think it's an appropriate time for us to kind of dig a little deeper now that we all know Canvas that much better. We don't have the significant bifurcated model of learning, where last year we had, 20 to 25% of our students were learning virtually while the others were in person. Some teachers were split having to do both. But in this case, we now are kind of a year into that, and our teachers know this platform much better than they did literally a year ago. And so they'll be providing their learning targets and objectives, their virtual access points. So like, for example, which platform will the teacher be utilizing in order to access those virtual options for synchronous opportunities wherever that's applicable. We also have a general description of unit topics and then the materials and resources that are used. A lot of this actually can also just be found on our website. We have, again, taken, now that the board has approved the specific policy, we just wanted to make sure that things were aligned so that we had what we could be available to our community available out there on our website. As far as for parents and Canvas, for parents and guardians, and what we plan on doing, again, within that Canvas page, I'm not going to read all of these to you, but again, we're kind of just digging a little deeper this year. Again, we do want to make sure that we essentially memorialize the work that we do. We'll be working with our teachers, not only as we have them come back this week, but also as we move forward into the school year. Like I said, we do have that website, and there is a lot of information out there already. And again, we will continue to update a lot of these things as they come. So for example, the board annually updates curricular resources, based on our curriculum review cycle. I'm not sure, Kelly, which we have coming up. Is it language arts coming up? That could be this year and or going into next year, depending on a review cycle. But again, we're just going to provide more of that information. Again, a lot of which has already been out there. We also plan on continuing to post our standards, the ACP guide, which is our academic and career planning guide. If you want detail as far as anything goes for 712, it is all there, I can assure you. And again, more specific information about lessons and resources. As far as addressing parental concerns, we did discuss this with the board when the board did approve the controversial issues policy. In a nutshell, what the board approved was that in essence, we will continue to have controversial issues being discussed in our classrooms, but that we make sure that our job as educators is limited to allowing the students to think for themselves. If an opinion will be presented, we need to make sure we present both sides of that opinion and have the students determine what they believe should be their beliefs and outcomes of the issue at hand. And so, again, these are all things that we discussed previously. In fact, again, we believe that the system has worked quite well. I believe we did have a board member, Ron, you did mention that you've gone through this process personally with your own students and that you've addressed any concerns you may have had with the teacher. That's where it belongs, quite honestly. Certainly we, call Kelly, call myself, call the principal, but really people should be talking to the teacher because that's where it belongs. Nonetheless, though, if there is an issue, just like there have been in the past, where maybe not both sides have been shared or something was not interpreted necessarily by the student as it was, we certainly will address things as needed. And in fact, we have had to discipline our staff members because they were not moving forward in the manner that we have instructed them, and in order to kind of move those resources forward. So, and we'll continue to do that. But again, it starts with the teacher, which is where these issues need to initiate. Again, what we'll be doing forward is the policy doesn't change what we do. We'll continue to get and kind of dig a little deeper as our staff and as our families are able to navigate through Canvas more and better this year than they have. And really, at this point, I'd entertain any comments, questions, or concerns.
I guess my only comment is, for the last couple meetings, as we talked about the policy change, and even tonight, you're saying we're not really changing what we're doing, we're just memorializing it, but then the Canvas slides are talking about adding additional information that was not in there last year. So was that something that was already planned, or is that additional information because of the policy changes?
No, that was already planned. In fact, the rationale was we were easing ourselves into Canvas, and so this is what we had planned on doing. Kelly, anything else?
No, I feel like our teachers have been very detailed. It's just reminding them to continue with that detail, and anything that may not have been placed in Canvas last year, just to make sure weekly that they have all of everything outlined like they always have. And then there will be like an asterisk on Canvas that basically says, hey, parents, if you do have any questions or concerns, please notify me as your child's teacher so that I can help address any issues that you have. So it's really not adding a lot more. It's just making sure we're tightened on our Canvas pages because we're going into year 2.
And my follow-up to that, my son was virtual last year, so obviously there was a lot of information in Canvas for virtual classes in the elementary schools. Was that comparable to what there was for in-person classes, and should I expect the same level this year, or is it was more than normal because it was all virtual?
I think there was a little bit more than normal because it was entirely virtual, but like anything, if you as a parent would like more information from your child's teacher, you are more than happy to reach out to them directly. Just like everything, some teachers are way more detailed than others are. We're just trying to kind of level the playing field a little bit more. So it's not really requiring a lot more from our staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I just have a quick question as far as training parents on how to use Canvas. Is it fairly straightforward? I used it once, I think, last year. I'm wondering if there's something like some sort of webinars for parents, how to use it.
We'd be happy to do that. What I can say is if Joe Garza can do it, anybody can do it.
Okay.
And so, but honestly, it is not that difficult. But should somebody have issues or concerns, certainly would encourage them to work with us as needed, and we'll be happy to do that. In fact, Kelly, I don't think that's a bad idea. to maybe just have a couple videos or even if somebody does have a question, comment, concern about how to access or, I know that we had a lot of that right when we had to switch to virtual.
Is that the tech team they'd reach out? 'Cause we wouldn't reach out to the teacher. It would be someone in the technology department.
We'll figure out a way to do that.
We'll get something out to parents. We did send something out last year, but there's always so much information that's coming out to all of you as parents.
I'm asking
so
for a friend, not myself.
I'm sure you are, Mitch. We'll make sure that we get some information out again about how parents can access and easily utilize Canvas from their vantage point.
Would it be wise just to ask our kids?
Well, sure, they do see it a little bit differently sometimes. So, and maybe they don't want you to know everything sometimes. So, but we'll see what we can find out.
Okay, if there's no other questions on this, we'll move on to the discuss approve parent transportation contract waiver. Do you have some background for us on that?
Yes, I mean, really what we have is an updated waiver that we received from the state. I'll hand the details over to Patrick for you to address. But essentially what this will allow us to do is to have a waiver as needed. But go ahead, Patrick.
On an annual basis, districts like the school district of New Berlin are required to establish a per pupil transportation rate that they use then in the establishment of transportation contracts throughout the year. As many of the school districts in the state of Wisconsin experienced this last year because ridership dropped due to the pandemic. It artificially increased, and in some cases dramatically, the per pupil cost. If we allow the pandemic to drive that calculation for our annual per pupil cost, for example, in the school district of New Berlin, it went from like $520 or $530 per student to $900 and almost $50 per student. What DPI recognized is that could be financially burdensome to school districts that do a lot of transportation contracting. So they've given us a one-year waiver and allowed us to use last year's number as long as that number was less than the actual calculation. And so I believe there are many school districts in southeastern Wisconsin that are going to their boards with this transportation waiver.
Yeah, so given this, we would recommend approval of the waiver as has been presented.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the parent transportation contract waiver?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and a second by Mr. Seidel. Any discussion?
What does the parent part have to do with it? I'm trying to understand, what is this cost used for?
So in some
exactly?
cases, we provide transportation directly from a student's house to their school. In other situations, we provide a contract to the parents to provide their own transportation. It really depends upon what's the most cost-effective method of transporting students to and from school.
This is primarily for private schools that we're required to give transportation for. So like a kid for Pius that lives in New Berlin or something like that, where there's one or two kids that need to get bused a far distance. It doesn't make sense to send a bus. We give them a parent contract. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mitch.
Any other discussion? Then all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next is a presentation from Ms. Wonderchek, and it's in regards to the COVID mitigation measures.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you. All right, the presentation is up on the monitors. Moving on to, so I just click this guy? Okay, good. So I took a look at our mission statement when I prepared this presentation. Our mission is to empower, inspire, and support students in acquiring the knowledge, skills, and dispositions to establish goals for their future and develop plans to achieve them. Primarily, we need to keep them in school to do that. It's very difficult to do that. I think that a lot of virtual kids did well under the circumstances last year, but I think that we can all agree that in-person education, we found out, is much more fruitful for all considered in this setting. So we can't achieve any part of our mission statement if they're sick with COVID and they can't be in school, because they can't be in school if they have COVID, because they'll spread it. The American Academy of Pediatrics is an association of 70,000 pediatricians who are physicians, not people who have done a lot of internet research, who have actually been educated and experienced in medical practices. The chair of the American Academy of Pediatrics sent a letter to the FDA in August detailing why they wanted to expedite the approval of the vaccine for children 5 to 11 years old. I attached a link so you can see that letter if you wish to see it. The information provided in that letter was alarming to me. I was very concerned about the fact that we have a plan right now in this district where we're sending back entirely unvaccinated populations of kids without masks, without any mitigation measures in place. And I'm very concerned as a mother and a board member that we will regret that decision, as many school districts in the South are experiencing, having those exact same facts in place. The AAP provided these statistics. I don't know that it's necessary for me to read them to you because they're alarming in their own right. And again, as a mother and a board member, I'm very concerned that we not become part of this growing problem. Because our number one mission, whether you like masks or hate masks, and I don't frankly know anybody who likes masks. I don't like them either. Nobody does. But we need to keep in mind what our primary goal is. And our primary goal is to keep children in school. I remember last year when we were all very, very concerned about the start of the school year, and Joe Garza said something in a board meeting, which was, we really feel like the safest place for these kids is to be in school. And Joe was right about that. It is the safest place for our kids to be in school. That's where they should be. That's developmentally appropriate for them. More alarming is the fact that COVID hospitalizations among children as compared to the adult population is rising at a much higher rate than we had anticipated that it would. In Texas, in Florida, and additionally in other states in the South that have now reopened without masking, are finding that children are being hospitalized, and that's not a good outcome for any family, and it's certainly not a good outcome when I look at it as a mother. And of course, some children have died of COVID. And I know that many people have said 378 kids have died as of August 12th from COVID. 378 is statistically insignificant. That's what people have said to me. And as a mother, that breaks my heart. Because what if it was yours? Then it's no longer insignificant. Because we're not talking about statistics. We're talking about children. And there is no substitute for that child who is now gone. That's 378 kids who will never have another Christmas celebration, or another birthday celebration, or another day of school. None of them will. And I believe it's incumbent upon us to be conservative, small c, conservative, and careful and cautious about what we do in our efforts here. If we make a mistake, very bad things could happen to people. Masks do work. And
please, order.
And I am troubled by the fact that we can't agree on core concepts. That's troubling. That aside, since children under 12 are not eligible for the vaccine, it does seem appropriate and a reasonable compromise to say, let's let the vaccine become approved on an emergency basis, which is what it will be for 5 to 11-year-olds, which is what they're studying. Give that population 6 weeks to get their kids vaccinated, and then eliminate the required masks. I really think, quite frankly, this is not what I'm proposing is nowhere close to what doctors who are qualified to make these recommendations are proposing. It's not even close to what medical professionals are proposing. It's a compromise, and that's why I proposed it. My hope is that we can all come together as a community, look out for each other, and try to protect one another from one another. I think that's really, really important. Our children need to be in school. They need to be in school for so many reasons, for educational purposes, for socialization, for routine, predictability in their lives. I have a child with special needs. The COVID year was the worst year of his life. And I can't get it back for him. We need to do everything we can to keep these kids in school. And if we see here, based on what's happened in the South, with these schools that have gone back with no masking, no mitigation measures, and they have outbreaks that have closed down their districts. That's happening. That's real.
Order, please, order. Order.
This is not.
Order. This. I'm sorry. We need to conduct this meeting, and we will get the vote. So we will, if we have a motion. The board will debate this. So please order. We're going to have a debate. I don't want to have to ask you to leave, please. Please, we will continue this.
In the end,
please, we want to complete the meeting, and we want everybody to be here to hear it. Please continue.
Thank you, Janet. My proposal is that we require masking for all people in our 4 elementary school buildings only until 6 weeks after the COVID vaccine becomes available to children 5 to 11. This allows parental choice surrounding vaccination of children. That is your choice, whether you want to vaccinate or not. Nobody's going to force you to do that. I also am asking that.
Please.
Order. I'm also asking.
Order, we're going to finish this meeting, please.
I am also asking to continue to, at that point, recommend only masking for all people within our 2 secondary school buildings, as the COVID vaccine has been available to that population for months. So for secondary buildings, I don't have any issue with maintaining the current status, because that seems appropriate. Masking, and Joe reported back to us last year that he did not believe, based on the data that he had gotten, that since we had all the mitigation measures in place, he did not believe that COVID was spreading in our buildings. And I take him at his word based on the data that he had. And we had a lot of mitigation measures in place then. COVID is still around, and if we remove all the mitigation measures at this point, then I fear that what's going to happen is we are not going to be able to keep these kids in schools. As a result, I would make a motion, and I move that our district requires universal masking in our elementary buildings beginning September 1 until 6 weeks after the COVID vaccine becomes available to children in ages 5 to 11.
Do I have a second?
Point of order.
Yes.
Madam President, I do believe Mr. Seidel may know parliamentary procedure better than I. I believe because the original motion was approved, you need to make a rescinding motion first before you need to rescind the prior.
You mean we need to rescind the motion that was done on the 26th?
That was passed on July 26th, yes.
Yeah, wouldn't this be a whole new one?
But Diana, I don't think that I don't believe that the way that motion was taken was limited to just the issue of masking. Was it?
No, it was everything.
Correct.
Right.
You're correct. Yep, correct. I was just trying to.
I would
make
like
sure
to hear from Mr. Seidel, since he does have the most experience as far as parliamentary procedure.
It would, if this was, this is a second motion based on action that we previously took. So it is sound. She could make this motion. And if a second's made and we vote.
Okay.
Yea or nay.
I just wanted
Yep.
No, thank you. Thank you for checking on that. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
So we have a motion by Ms. Wondricek and a second by Ms. Unger. Any discussion? And Ms. Unger, you do have first priority to speak.
Sure. So, I mean, to address some of the comments made tonight, the reason Chrislyn is making this motion now is that the data has changed. The cases have gone up in the last month. So we're looking at different numbers than we were looking at the end of July. And we're certainly looking at very different numbers from what we saw in May when changes were made to remove masking as well as removing the quarantine. So like Chrislyn, I'm very concerned that we're sending our kids back to school with zero mitigation in place, and our elementary students do not have a choice of getting a vaccine at this point. So there is nothing to keep them safe.
Please order. Each board member will be able to give you their opinion on this.
So I'll stop with that for now. Anyone else have comments?
This presentation states that the goals for our students is to keep them in schools. Yet on every occasion over the past 15 months, the two board members who have shown support for this motion cast their votes to drastically limit the number of days of learning of our students. It is correct that case counts are up in children over the past weeks, but this by itself does not mean anything. Hospitalization rates and death rates need to be measured against this as well. More children are being hospitalized when compared to adults in the past. But the real stat that matters is the hospitalization rate of children, period, not when compared to another group. The child hospitalization rate was almost 4 times higher in May 2020 than it is now. The hospital rate of children is down. It is not up. I found the statistic on the exact same document that this presentation was built with. In fact, it was right next to the exact statistic. The death rate is correct, but that is only when you are looking at children 0 to 19 nationally. This presentation calls for masking children 3 to 12 in New Berlin, Wisconsin. Wisconsin DHS website has a much more representative statistic that should have been used for this proposal. It is the death rate of children 0 to 9 years old, and that number is 0.
Please, order. Order. We're going to continue.
That is correct. In the state of Wisconsin, over the past 15 months, 0 children under the age of 9 have died. But you won't find that statistic in here because it won't scare you enough. Our goal as a board is not to scare our families in doing what we want them to do. It is to give them the proper information to make their own informed decisions. I trusted our administration and our board's direction last year to send my child into in-person learning. This year, my second child is of school age, and I have full confidence to send her this year as well.
Please, order. If we have other board members who want to make their statement. Do we have anybody else who haven't already spoken?
I just want everybody to know that I have read through all my emails, and I have to say that we have some very passionate parents and community members out there on both sides. As of 5 p.m. today, I had received 128 emails, and by removing those that had sent multiple emails, I still had like over 100 emails on this topic, and there are both on both sides. I understand that every parent and guardian is doing and speaking to what their passion is, and I don't want to diminish that passion. I truly hope that the decision tonight doesn't tear our community apart, but whichever way you slice it, a large percentage of people are going to be disappointed. I come back to being first and foremost, I an elected official charged with educating our children, all of our children, and being and ensuring that they have the opportunities in place to be career and college ready. Yes, the health and wellness of these students is very important as well, and I am putting trust into our parents and our wonderful parents that we have, families in the community, to know what is best. And and can keep their child home if they have symptoms. We just don't know the long-term effects of masking, and mandating a mask takes away their parental choice. So, Joe, I have one question for you. What are we doing for kids that show symptoms in school? Are we continuing to send them home, and do we have the staffing in place to do that?
We do have the staffing in place to continue with monitoring symptomatic students, just like we did last year, and quite honestly, just like we've had in years past. If we had students that were showing up symptomatic even before COVID, we were contacting parents to let them know. Again, we're gonna because things are different, we are gonna continue to just let parents know, if your child is sick, please keep them home. That's what we will encourage families to do. I do see that as a mitigation effort, and again, we do have the staffing necessary to do that, Amy.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Go ahead, Jeff.
I agree with Mitch. I looked up the same statistics that he did. He actually said it a little bit more eloquently than I did because he's got the stats in front of him. I was just going to do it off the top of my head. But I've also been a building contractor and in the construction business for at least 20 years. And if anybody's ever put up drywall knows there's a lot of dust, which is a lot thicker, or it's a lot thicker than any sort of virus that you'll ever see. And if you take a mask off, you're going to see it around your nose, around your face, and you can see it everywhere. Masks don't work. And it doesn't matter what kind of mask you have, they're still going to leak through. You can't, when we wear masks, all of you who wear glasses, do they work really well or do they fog up your glasses, right? There's air leaking out. It doesn't make any sense. So you can't argue with me that masks work. I have to use them most of my life, and I can tell you that they don't work as well as you think. They help, but they're not great. And these are for different chemicals as well as just drywall. I use drywall because that's the obvious physical difference that you see. Also, I trust all the parents out here. Part of the reason I moved to New Berlin is because the parents that live here care about their kids, they care about their future, they care about the school, they care about the district, and they care about everybody that's around here. But at the same time, I can't abide taking away people's freedom. Being a board member and having a position up here to make a decision, it's your decision what you do with your kids. It's not our decision.
Please, order.
Well, hold on, I'm not finished.
He's not finished.
I'm not finished. It's just two more things. The thing is what we love about what's going on, and I appreciate the debate, but being accused of not caring about somebody because we want to exercise our own freedom. We're not running around telling you that you have to take your mask off. Nobody's bullying anybody. If that's the way you feel comfortable, you have the freedom to do it. Nobody's taking away your freedom to tell you to take off a mask. We're telling you can do what you want. Quit making everybody else do what you think you want.
Please. Go ahead, Mr. Seidel.
I don't really have anything that passionate. The fact is the CDC recommends masks. The AAP recommends masks. The school district of New Berlin recommends masks. So that's really all I have to say, and at that point in time, I'm going to call the question.
If you don't mind, I'd like to make my statement. Thank you. To go off of what Mr. Seidel just said, they're guidelines, and they are general, and they do not take into consideration what is happening in local communities. Every community has its ability to set their own policies, and as Mr. Helmer had pointed out, some of our local actual statistics. So we have 0 deaths of children in the state of Wisconsin. Also, this data does not know anything about what's going on in individual families and individual students. They, as a board, we do not know exactly every single student's situation. And so I would like to share with you one of the emails that was received to illustrate this. This is from a parent in the district. We have one child in the school district, a 5th grader at Elmwood, and I was so thankful to hear that the school board was allowing parents and our child the choice as to whether they wanted to wear a mask. Letting individual families make the choice is the best choice for all. I have now learned that a mask requirement for elementary students is being presented on Monday night. I am not in favor of this plan at all. When COVID first started, I consulted with our family doctor, as well as the asthma allergy specialist, as my child has severe asthma, and both stated that COVID was a virus that did well in children. Children are more likely to be hospitalized from the flu, RSV, or other respiratory viruses than from COVID. My concern about COVID with asthma was put at bay. However, imagine being an asthmatic child wearing a mask and doing gym class. Imagine the dust particles, mold, and other indoor allergens being stuck to the mask that your asthmatic child is breathing in every day, knowing that those allergens trigger their asthma. My child had more asthma and breathing issues while masked than she had before, and we are so relieved when there was no longer a mask requirement. I'm asking you to vote against this proposed plan. The original plan of choice was the most inclusive and non-discriminating. It truly is the best plan for all school district and New Berlin families. And I do have to agree with that, because this was not the only email we received from a parent that gave specific examples of how masking harmed their own child. There was instances of other asthma and allergy. There was instances of dealing with anxiety and mental health, as well as learning issues. And these children, the students, do not belong to this board. They do not belong to this school district. It is the parents who are responsible for them, and we don't know exactly what's going on in everybody's situations. And these are not just anecdotes. These are children in the district that we are responsible for educating, not taking care of their health. Their parents are going to be able to take care of their health, and I am very, very disappointed that this caused so much turmoil in our community, because I know people are very passionate about this, but the best thing to do, just like this parent said, to be the most inclusive and non-discriminating, also the least political, is to let the families decide for themselves what is best for their own child. So I will not be voting in favor of this proposed plan. If you'd like to call the question.
I'm going to call the question.
Do we need a motion for that? I'll make a motion. Okay. We need a second to call the question.
Second.
Do we need to debate this?
Sorry, what does that mean? Call the question?
It means we're going to vote. We're done
Okay.
debating this. Mm-hmm.
Is that right? I don't know.
We don't debate this one, right? It's not a
No,
debatable.
no, this is just ends debate.
Ms. Wondercheck,
Yes.
Ms. Unger,
Yes.
Ms. Crosby,
No.
Mr. Helmer,
No.
Mr. Kurth,
Absolutely no.
Ms. Scholes,
No.
Mr. Seidel.
No.
Oh, sorry. Motion does not pass. Order, please. Next, we have a first read of superintendent evaluation. So it's just a first read. I don't know if Kate, if you have any new information to share since last time.
No, we didn't change anything from last time, so it's the same proposal from last meeting. Any questions?
I'm sorry, we'll just give it a moment for clear out and quiet down.
Could you repeat what you were saying, Kate?
Yes,
Did
go
you say
ahead.
there were
repeat.
no?
There's no changes. I mean, you just used the one. The only pending change is we are going to reword the budget goal, but that doesn't really affect the form. I mean, I put the current goals into the form just as an example, but the goals obviously will change year over year. So if there are any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, email. We do have a personnel committee meeting on Monday, so if there are any questions, we can discuss those before our next board meeting. So ideally, if you do have questions, get them to me before Monday.
Yes, please. I really appreciate it if everybody would read that before we do take the vote at the next meeting.
I just want to say that I really like this proposal because it clearly states what we're going to do. And before this, we didn't, like the current form we had was kind of hand me down from president to president. So this is clearly stating what we're going to do as a board. So I really appreciate this proposed evaluation.
Okay. Then we'll move on to action items discussed in closed session. We have one motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff as presented.
Second.
So I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Helbner to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes. Then we have future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7:00 p.m. in the Eisenhower Commons, unless noted otherwise. So as Kate mentioned, there's a 4 o'clock personnel meeting on August 30th. September 13th is a regular board meeting. September 27th is the district budget hearing and annual meeting at 7:00 p.m. in the Eisenhower Commons. And of course, a very important date coming up, September 1st, is the first day of school. So that completes our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Second. I have a motion by Mr. Helmer, second by Mr. Kurth. All those in favor, raise your right hand.